Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm continuing my conversation with actor David Doremus, who played G.W. Haynes on the Waltons for about, 8 episodes, including 3 or 4 2-hour specials. It seemed like when we had a 2-hour special, we wanted GW to be part of it. Anyway, please welcome back David. I was looking at the Easter Story, which is one of my favorite episodes, and when they took us up to Fraser Park and we're like walking along these logs, you and I, when we're talking about the dance, and then when I'm going to teach you to dance, and you can see like we're really working not to slide off that log that we're walking across.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were at one point in time almost running, and I think did you or I kind of slide on the snow or something on with that, so it's like, wow. And actually I was fortunate enough to go, of course, living in the area, had gone back up to the ranch and kind of reviewed it when I was older. I was probably in my, I think, 40s or something, going back and again, plethora. It hadn't changed. That's what was so amazing.
I don't know how to find it because I never drove up there. We were always put on a van and off we went. And so I wasn't paying attention. I would love to go back and see if I could find any of those locations.
I think I can find that. So at some point in time, I'll give you a little map or something on how to get there.
Cool.
Yeah, literally now it's obviously been probably 15, 20 years since I was there, but the barn was still there. The house was there. I got to actually meet the owners, and we
that was the property that was supposed to be your kind of farmland that you gave to Aaron.
Right.
That we never heard anything more about.
Yeah. It was like, okay, well, she's got it and she'll take care of it. That's all I would know. But
she gave it back to your parents.
God. Good. That's a good question. We'll have to ask for something. But no, that was kind of fun. I mean, the long driveway, just everything, but it hadn't changed, and that was kind of neat to see where it hadn't changed. I actually do remember while filming that, I mean, it was kind of, the house and stuff was kind of up on, it was in a valley. And we were midway up the valley from the bottom to the top. And all of a sudden you heard this roaring sound. And it's like, what in the world is that? A jet aircraft, something, I'm sure, came flying through the valley. And it was actually lower to the ground than we were midway up the hill.
Wow.
He came through, and of course he was there and gone in a second. But kind of scary and just amazing too, jaw-dropping. And I think we were in the middle of filming, so it was like everything had to stop because the noise was so horrendous. But I'm sure out of Edwards Air Force Base, he was doing some kind of drill or something through the mountains, and it was amazing.
Wow. I wasn't up there because was that on the first Casualty or the Volunteer, one of those last ones that you did?
I think,
because I wasn't up there for that location that I know of.
Yeah, I think First Casualty is what it was. Okay. Yeah, we were up there visiting the parents and, so on, and visiting my horse. By the way, do you know the name of my horse?
I don't.
My horse had a name.
Oh. His
name was Red.
Oh.
Yeah. I've had people ask me that. And it's like, you're right. How do I remember? But of course, GW went to see his parents, and, I'm back on leave, and had mentioned, they said, oh, come in, you got to be hungry. And I said, well, I want to kind of get acquainted here for a minute. So I ran down and I jumped over the barbed wire fence and ran down to my horse to give my horse a hug. But I went, gosh, I was pretty athletic back then. I'm glad I didn't trip and fall on my face over top the barbed wire fence. So, that was kind of fun. But I went down to see Red. So I don't think it was, I don't know how, it was mentioned by somebody, maybe my stage dad or whatever. But so kind of fun fact. But I had somewhat in a reunion asked me that.
Hmm.
And I did not, unfortunately, have a clue at the time, but I did research it afterwards. I think maybe I was told that his name was Red. So,
Well, were there favorite scenes or favorite episodes or of what you've kind of remember or look back at?
well, I enjoyed driving the truck. That was kind of fun for me, an older truck like that. I had an old 56 Ford pickup myself. And so it was fun driving that, and of course it's always interesting, how you have to walk up to your mark or whatever. So the lighting's right. Well, same thing with the truck. I don't know if you experienced it, but you have to back the truck up to a certain spot and pull forward to a certain spot and drive down the driveway in a certain way in a certain speed. It's people think, oh, you're just driving in. No, it's sometimes very complicated. And so I enjoyed that. Of course, anytime you get a kiss from a young lady, beautiful young women, that's always stupendous.
Well,
But
and you got sort of you're the only one who dated two of the Walton women.
I was, and I don't even know how that worked out. That was so fantastic. I mean, obviously you'd moved on, and I don't know how I was all of a sudden smitten with Aaron, you know, or not hurt and didn't stay away. Writers do their thing, and it seemed to work out very, very well. So, but no, enjoyable. I mean, it's fun to, go on, locations. That's always makes it a lot better than I think being stuck up in a stage all the time. Um, so I enjoyed that, and I just enjoyed all of it because you, as the Walton family, or part of the Walton family, when I showed up on set, I was like family. And GW was down the street, and I think either Olivia or Michael had said that GW is just like family. And I know that's the way you treated all the cast that came on and did, bit pieces and so on, like they were family. There wasn't any, it was all in harmony, and it was just so strange because I had been on sets that I won't speak of that quite, weren't like that.
Hmm.
So it was fun. You walk in and instantly it's like old friends. And of course, for me being back, I think over 7 years or whatever it was,
Yeah.
seeing you again, and it's like, yeah, I wasn't your boyfriend anymore, but you were still my girlfriend.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that because I mean, what I see is that there were three episodes you were in season one, then you had three episodes in season two, the
Yeah.
prize. If you were in the prize, you were definitely in the prize. Thanksgiving story where we did the whole Pocahontas Captain Smith thing. The
Acting on acting,
Awakening.
acting
Um,
on acting. Wasn't that funny?
the Awakening was fun with the flowers, and we had some fun scenes on that one, and then you end up giving flowers to
John Boy.
and hand them to John Boy, which was cute.
Well, and then it was great because you came around the corner and said,
Yeah,
let's go. And it's like, yeah, okay, fine.
yeah. And then we're back to you were as much a playmate as anything else,
Yeah, yeah.
from early on playing ball, and you were somebody who I could go just be one of the boys with, in a sense.
Yeah, it was just fun. And actually, were you really a tomboy? Because I mean,
Yeah.
yes, I mean, that's you and I got along really great that way. And, it's like, it was cute because one of my boys, of course, my boys played, baseball to a very high level. One of my sons played in the independent pro
Oh,
uh,
cool.
as a pitcher. And they saw me throw the ball, quote, back to you, which I don't know if I really threw it back to you or not. They go, Dad, you threw pretty good.
The toughest thing for me was that catcher's mitt, because there was no pocket at
Oh,
all.
that was a
It just
rock.
it was like you just kind of had to bounce and then grab it really quickly. There was no way to catch with that thing.
Well, that was very pseudo to the original catcher's mitts.
Mm.
They didn't have a big pocket like they've got now. Literally, you caught it, put your hand there, and captured the ball. And that's why a lot of times the ball would get away so easily because there wasn't obviously started redesigning until what they've got today. But in fact, I think I've got a catcher's mitt somewhere close by.
Well, I know we've signed a few, at different events to auction off.
Yeah. Actually, I think there was one of my original when I was like 5 years old. I played football, I played baseball. I've always been very sport orientated, and one of my original baseball gloves got sold at one auctioned off at one of those.
Mm.
And I was very excited, went for quite a bit, and that was so neat that it had done that. And I've still got a couple gloves, and maybe if it comes around again, I might end up, doing something like that again. But
Yeah, I still have a baseball glove in the garage someplace, from
Yeah.
from when we used to play softball, because we had, the Walton team had a softball team that I used to play on. And then I played on a radio station's team. Mary and I used to play on that team as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I played softball for just, in that sort of settings for years.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I went on to snow skiing and motorcycle riding and a lot of other sports like that. But definitely have. In fact, I could tell you right where my catcher's mitt is in my bedroom closet. I just looked at it today, and it's like, oh yeah, get it out, hit it a couple times. I remember the day. Okay, next.
Well, it's interesting with your character because, like, after the season 2 stuff, then you weren't in season 3 at all. So you would have thought, oh well, maybe the character, maybe they're not going to. And then all of a sudden, season 4, the quilting, all of a sudden you reappear, and it's as if we've still had an ongoing
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of relationship.
It was in limbo for a little while until you got the quilting, until you were going to do that, which
Yeah. And then you were in the episode The Wedding, which I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Not that we ever had a conversation in that episode. So I thought it was interesting that they brought your character back and you were at, the hard luck dance thing. But
yeah, I was there for activities, and which would be justifiable. I mean, being on the mountain or something like that. So
yeah,
it made sense. But then again, you're right. It's like, well, you've kind of moved on. So why, am I still involved? And I'm not of, GW, I'm not even thinking of you like that. You're still one of my buddies. And
yeah.
so, yeah, to have them bring back for that. That's so funny. But
Yeah. So, so you'd just be cruising along in your life doing other work, and all of a sudden you'd get some call with with an availability check.
yes. Yeah. I mean, periodically, I do little scenes on shows inadvertently, but yes, that's what was happening. Is all of a sudden my agent would call me and she goes, Dave, hey, how you doing? And it's like, oh, I haven't talked to you in a long time. She goes, yeah, next week, it's going to be Monday, Tuesday. You're going to be on set. It's like, I'm doing what? And they say, hey, on Friday, you'll get the script, or maybe even again, when you show up, on the day of the event. But yeah, so it was just like that. I just got a phone call and said, you're GW again. You're going back on the Waltons, which, it always excited me. It's like, cool, I get to work again, but I very much was an athlete and involved in a lot of things. I played football all the way through high school, and acting wise, they didn't like the fact that you played football. I know I hockey skate when I was younger, but the studios acting people wouldn't want me to be playing hockey because I might get high stick and get it in the face. So a lot of things that were somewhat limited. And likewise, I remember when I was in high school, there was an article in the local newspaper that mentioned the actor Dave DeRemus that had been on blah, blah, blah. And so what I found out later is our rival school, I went to Hoover in Glendale, and then there was Glendale High in Glendale. And up on the dartboard at Glendale High School was my picture from the newspaper that the other team got to throw darts at. So,
Oh,
yeah, so I was the objective of destroying Dave, because he's just an actor. He's not really an athlete, which most of the time didn't work out well for them. So,
oh, they underestimated you.
which is a great place to be, right?
Yeah. Well,
So,
I was amazed that they were actually pretty lenient with me about all the sports stuff I did. There was kind of sometimes they were like, just, I don't want, I have like one of the producers, she go, I don't want to know. I just
yeah,
don't want to know.
if I don't
Um,
know, then I don't have to worry about it.
yeah.
And if
But they
something
never
happens,
told me I
we'll do it.
couldn't, you know?
Yeah. No, I was actually told by my agent in a couple situations to where, no, you can't do that. I was going to race motocross, and they said, "Oh, no, 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 we really don't like that." And it's like, well, but why? I'm not going to. I mean, the other people will crash, not me.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I never got injured doing any of the sports I was doing in a way that prevented me from being able to film. So
Right.
I had never shown myself to be an insurance risk. So, but sometimes when I, would go and do theater, somebody would suddenly throw something in the contract that I couldn't snow ski or skydive or,
Yeah.
jump horses or whatever while I was doing a particular
Right. Yeah. You
play.
can't
Yeah.
skateboard. And it's like, skateboard. No, you can't do it. Too easy to fall. But yeah, and that's I can understand from their point of view.
Oh,
They
yeah.
put time and energy and money into you, and you're providing a product for them, and they don't want to lose their product. So
Yeah. I mean, we are not, it's not like your understudy, at least when I was doing theater, but most of the time when I did theater, it wasn't theater that had understudies. So, and I might be doing 7, 8 shows a week. And so it was kind of like, if one of the actors didn't go on, you know, there were no understudies. I mean, but then I literally did theater where we didn't have understudies, and when like a nasty stomach bug went through the cast, and
ooh,
I mean, there were like buckets in the wings, for
sure.
people. They'd be on stage, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, he just went on. Okay, great. Well, we'll just riff until he comes back, if he comes back.
Are
And
you ready?
every once in a while, we'd have somebody go, like, I remember one time the director went on book in hand, like script in hand, reading the lines, and they just had to make an announcement because somebody was literally so ill that they couldn't go on. And so
Wow.
they say, tonight, the role of blah, blah is going to be played by, and, we don't have understudies. So he's going to have a script in his hand. So just,
Please go with it.
yeah, it'd be like, okay, well, we're cutting this song and we're cutting this dance and we're, and otherwise we're going on. And but you can't do that on TV. I mean,
No.
people have complained about, John Boy being replaced, which I understand, or why wasn't my husband Kurt back when he was supposed to suddenly reappear? Why was it a different actor? So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is confusing to an audience who we ask them to bond with us as characters, and they do, and then you go, oh, no, no, let's pretend this is the same person.
It is very hard. I know I've watched different shows, and like was even Walls, like you said, to where you see a different character and you're like going, nope, not the same person. I don't love them the way I got to love or enjoy or whatever you want to call it, that particular person as that character. And again, there's I know there's fans that get so involved that it's almost like it's real life. So when you've got that real life feeling, and then somebody goes away and a new person comes in and they call them the same name, you're going like, that can't happen. That's not real. That doesn't work that way. So, I can understand, and people get bitter with
Yeah.
regards to
Well,
that.
I'm really glad when GW came back each time that you happened to be available to come in and do the role, or I'm sure they would have just either brought in, because they did that with other characters, with
Yeah.
Patsy Brimmer, with Amy Godsey, with,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hard to say what they would have done, but no, I enjoyed coming back, and I was happy to come back and, again, be a part of it. So yeah, I don't know if I would have even watched the show and I wouldn't have been me anymore.
uh, Once again, I want to thank David for coming and joining me and sharing about his time on the Waltons. We so loved having him on the Waltons, and I have so loved having him as a guest. I'll see you next time for more behind the scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy and hopefully more special guests. Thanks for watching.